Hey, yo, what's up, everyone? This is me, Dre. So we'll talk about this fucked up story that I just read on CNN.com. It's about a young black man named Trayon Christian, 19-year-old college student in New York. He's into fashion, so he goes into this store named Barneys. I've never heard of it. They don't have that here down in Texas. But he goes into this store called Barneys and gets a designer belt, spends about $320, $350 for the belt, goes to the counter, provides his debit card, his hard-earned money, he saved up for it. The clerk asked him for his identification, swiped the card, point of sale transaction, walks out of the store, didn't know that the punk-ass clerk called the cops and basically said that it was a fraudulent transaction. So 2 blocks away from the store, NYPD pulls him over and has a fucking audacity to ask him, how can a black man such as yourself afford something like this? And I'm sitting asking, what the fuck? First and foremost, to judge someone like that, you can't really do that. Unfortunately, this did happen. So now the student, he's suing Barneys. He's also suing NYPD. They issued an apology to him, but it was one of those canned, generic apologies, which is fucking bullshit. I hope that he runs these motherfuckers through the cleaners. First and foremost, I'm looking at some of the comments and the forums for the article itself, and a lot of people are asking, why sue the department store? And this is why. Because this young man, he went into the store, he provided the card. And by policy, they asked him for his identification. He provided that. The name on the card matched the name of his identification. At that moment, for the clerk to assume that it was a fraudulent transaction because a young black man goes in there and spends $320 on a fucking belt, that is profiling. Some racist bullshit right there. So that's something that I would be up in arms about. Then for the cops to pull him over and ask him some bullshit like that, how can a black man such as yourself afford a belt like that? Who in the fuck are you to ask me that? Like, cops aren't dirty. Like, some cops don't have a stash of money. Not all cops, because I have respect for law enforcement. There's a lot of good cops out there, but we all know there's a lot of fucked up cops out there. So you can always go back to looking at the case of Rodney King. Yeah, he was wrong for speeding, but for all those guys to beat this motherfucker the way they did, and we're not going to go into that story, but that's just an example. You can also look at the case of Oscar Grant. You can look at the case of Leon Rosby, where the cop shot his dog. There's a whole bunch of shit that goes on. The cop that shot Mr. Rosby's dog, he had already been implicated for police brutality. So cops aren't clean with this. But this is just another example of guys behind the badge overstepping their authority. So with this, keep this video short. I'm going to leave an article, but I'm just expressing my distress over this because it's something that can happen to me. It's something that can happen to anyone. And it could be one of those situations to where a black cop goes up to a white kid who just made such a transaction and asks him the same thing. But it just so happens that this is a young black man, and he was stereotyped, and it started the moment that he left out of the store. If there was a question, why didn't the clerk delay him just for a few moments, call management or something to that effect? Why allow the transaction to go through? So he's just as culpable, and I'm talking about the clerk. He's just as culpable for the transaction because he didn't stop it. If he suspected that there was fraud, it's his responsibility to stop any potential crime before it happens. I'm not saying just jump out and apprehend, but if he's got the card, question, delay, call a supervisor, call management. But he allowed the transaction to go through after matching the identification with the card. Everything matched. So that's some bullshit. And I'm not blind to the fact that this shit happens because I know it happens all the time. Have I been stereotyped? Of course. I've been discriminated against by whites, blacks, Asians, Hispanics, the whole run. But this is some bullshit. This is the kind of stuff that is not tolerable. So I hope the lawsuit goes through. I hope that he gets the maximum for this because this is some bullshit. And for those who live in New York, I wouldn't give these motherfuckers a red cent. I hope they go out of business. Anyway, I'm going to leave a comment to the article that I just read about this on CNN.com. And if you like this video, I hope that you like, subscribe, and share. Peace.